is Sri Pankaj Ora, the managing editor, The Sunday Guardian. With over 38 years of experience as a journalist, Sri Pankaj Ora has worked with some of the most reputed media houses in the country. Some of the newspapers he has worked with in his illustrious career includes Hindustan Times, Times of India, and The Hindu. He has keenly covered current and political news during his career and is a specialist crime and city stories. Is a specialist in crime and city stories. He served as the political editor of Hindustan Times for over 12 years and covered 10 parliamentary polls till date. Pankaj is a member of the Press Council of India. He has also been on the accreditation committees of the Press Information Bureau and the Government of Delhi. In the past, he has been a member of Central Board of Film Certification, the National Integration Council, and the Governing Council of the Sardar Patel National Police Academy at Hyderabad. A member of Dr. Zakir Hussain College Memorial Trust, he was a former Secretary General of the Press Club of India. Well known for his understanding and knowledge of the political affairs of the country, he has followed important events closely, both as correspondent and as a commentator. Pankaj has extensive experience as a reporter, from covering Indira Gandhi's meetings to Rath Yatra by L.K. Advani and Murli Manohar Joshi, Rajiv Gandhi's election from Amethi, and the fall of the VP Singh government, communal riots to militancy. The spectrum has been wide. His writings have also analyzed cabinet reshuffles and implications of important political decisions. Apart from politics, Pankaj specializes in covering crime, militancy, and education. I warmly welcome and invite Sri Pankaj Oraji to address us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for your kind words. It's a great privilege to be invited by the foundation. And first of all, I'd like to pay my respect and my tribute to Mr. Jaipal Reddy, who was a towering figure in Indian politics, who was an intellectual giant, a scholar, who influenced, so many people, so many of us. I was to begin with a critic of Mr. Jaipal Reddy, but seeing him work and seeing him explain things, and I was totally I changed my opinion and I became a great admirer of his. And there are so many things he has left behind which we all cherish, and we would like to the new generation also to know. First of all, let me tell you, since though it is about democracy, Mr. Jaipal Reddy was a great believer in plurality of views, and he encouraged people from various ideologies to interact with him, and also would interact with them. For instance, he was a great admirer of Mr. Nehru on one side, and at the same time, he was a great admirer of Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Inderjeet Gupta also. He had deep understanding of Indian politics, and so when it came to media, he would explain things historically on how democracy flourished, how democracy progressed, and how it evolved in India. And he would also explain the reasons why certain authoritarian regimes, in the name of democracy, came to power at the center as well as in various states. So I'll also like to add here that, when it came to media, if there was an award of the most popular politician in the country, it would, go to Mr. Jaipal Reddy, because, he had such a vast following. When he was the Janata Dal spokesperson, I still remember the people who were covering Janata Dal at that time when VP Singh was in power and was about to get to power. They would sit and attend his press conferences like school kids and would take down notes, because he would, give so much of information. And then he would be available in the evening to clarify any thing which, any doubts anybody had. His accessibility was absolutely outstanding. And for instance, and he, his main thought was that to have a democracy, a strong democracy, you should have a very strong opposition. Though he was in the government for 10 years, but I think he had his best innings as an opposition leader, where he, excelled. And especially when, the Babri Masjid fell and he was in the Rajya Sabha, his performance was absolutely outstanding. He was a firm believer that, it should be, people of all faiths, everyone, there should be, a very inclusive way of thinking. And he encouraged that. Of course, vigilance is the price for democracy, but Mr. Jaipal Reddy would, make it abundantly clear that, in order to take it forward, we had to be more tolerant and we had to understand the thinkings of various political parties. He could give his concept of Nehruvian socialism, of how it was different to Lohia socialism, and how Acharya Narendra Dev, had his own version of socialism. And then he would say why left could not thrive in India except in West Bengal. He would give reasons, and he would say that it was not Jyoti Basu, but Pramod Kumar Gupta, Pramod Das Gupta, who was, responsible for the left, flourishing in West Bengal. So there were many versions and a lot of things he would bring about. Now, in the present times, when, we have seen that instruments of the state are often used by political dispensation, the ruling political dispensation, to, suppress the opposition or leaders who are opposed to their thinking. We need to remember certain things, that it is only by inclusive and by persuasive means that, we can, solve problems. If there are agitations around the country, it's the right of the people. As long as things are done peacefully, you cannot take that right away. The recent farmers' agitation, the longest ever, 13 months, people, on the streets of the capital, not on the streets, on the borders of the capital, and, staying put there, succeeded in, making the government turn down its own farm laws and repeal them. So, that's why, unless and until there's a strong opposition, and unless and until there's a strong voice of dissent from the opposition or opposition parties, it's very difficult for the ruling dispensation to, they will otherwise keep on having their way. And if there's a dissent, it can show the mirror to a lot of people. And, this mirror showing business is most important in a democracy, because people should respect the alternate view also. It cannot be that, things are imposed. We are in at a time where, development normally means, people say, let's talk about development issues. And when you talk of development issues, it is not concerning with human resources development. It is always materialistic, that build this flyover, build this expressway, build this building, build that, because development in India has become synonymous with corruption. And it is only kickbacks which come when you launch, these all infrastructure projects. I'm not against the launching of infrastructure projects, but equal emphasis should be laid to human resource development, where, humans, people by and large, who are the ultimate masters in democracy, they are the ones who benefit, not a few individuals. It's also very important to have a very strong media. Mr. Jaipal Reddy, for instance, was in favor of a very strong media, and used to often point out that, how it has undergone a change. There was a time when, the chief minister or the ministers could directly talk to the correspondent, ask him, why are you writing this? What is your perspective on it? Try and explain to me, or otherwise you come around and share my view, or, endorse it. There could be a debate. Later, it became that, there would be these strong politicians who would call up the editor and tell him that, your reporter has done this, your correspondent has done this. If it is not rectified, the consequences will not be good. Third, it was that, powerful people would call up the proprietor of the newspaper or media house and directly tell him that this is not to be done. Otherwise, there are consequences. And now it is not even the politician doesn't call up. It is a joint secretary level officer who will call up and say that this is unacceptable. this thing, otherwise we'll withhold your advertisements or we will, stop support. So this is what this corporatization of media is the fourth pillar of democracy. It's equally strong. It has to be strong. It has to, respond. It has to be receptive. It has to reflect what the public opinion is. It has to reflect where the government has gone wrong. It has got the role as, quite similar to that of an opposition party or the opposition group. Here, you have a brute strength in various assemblies and you have got brute strength at the center, and yet the opposition is not allowed to function. And if it is functioned, it is either expelled or there are actions which are taken. This, I think, is overall a violation of the spirit of our democracy and our, basic values which we have cherished for so many years. Democracy has been suffering, all over the world. In the United States, we saw what happened on the Capitol Hill when Trump's supporters had basically tried to overrun the most powerful institutions in Washington. We have seen what happened at the Red Fort last year when on Republic Day, people were allowed to, get in, and despite so much of security, it is appalling and it is still a mystery how did those people get up on the ramparts and, hoist flags out there. So, basically the thing is that democracy's the real meaning, it is getting diluted, and it is for the people who are the most essential part of a system to, re-strengthen it. I'm not saying that, you should not believe in one ideology or the other, but there should be certain tolerance. There should be certain, flexibility to understand and appreciate the other viewpoint. And it should not be reduced to majoritism, where majoritism has its way and people who are, against the majority are brandished as anti-national or brandished as, or given some name or the other and, denounced. So this is, I think, very important, especially on Shri Jaipal Reddy's 80th anniversary, that we remember the values he stood for. Though he had started with the Congress, he had become one of the most powerful opposition leaders or a person opposed to the Congress at one time. And subsequently, he came around and, spent his last years again in the Congress. But at the same time, he never compromised on his commitments, on his beliefs, on his thinking. He was, a person who was known for his wit, repartee, and the manner in which he could, reflect or deflect questions. He was the first person to start debriefing, to make people understand, especially the media, what is the reason for this decision, what goes behind this. So people like him are, very, very difficult to find. But what he stood for is what we should, take forward. And I, would like to pray and wish that his soul, wherever it is, should rest in peace, and his family, his wife, his children and their families, they, take his work forward, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. From being a critic to an admirer shows what a personality Shri Jaipal Reddy sir was. Your narrative on him made us understand his political trajectory and his ideology. You have opened up a major issue, corporatization of media and the role of state, and the role people play to strengthen democracy and not to get carried away with majoritarian politics. Thank you, sir.